Boom, we are live. Welcome to Tokyo Tonight 2. I'm Hiko Simon. That is my phone timing out because it's on low battery mode. Damn, you know what? I'm just going to change the battery settings on that real quick. Just so that it doesn't cut out every 10 seconds. Let's do that. Battery. Should have done that before I start. I hope you're all very well. How are you? Razo, good. Let the games begin. First time I've seen that in a while. Good to see you and thank you for that. We've got Tai Nakamura in here. Raz, sup fam? Sup Tai Nakamura, good to see you as well, Razo Gul. We've got Sergeant Bilko and Robert Old Dude. It's good to have you guys all in here. Let me turn off that low power mode, maximize the brightness, get off the night mode, which I believe I need to do this. Did that? No. Close. Boom. And that should be coming back. There we go. Okay, so sorry, just setting up. Hey, Shorta Bodega, good to see you. Quint Rankin, good to see you. Good, and good to see everybody. Welcome to Tokyo Night Tonight 2. I am Hiko Simon. It is Sunday the 25th of February. And it's very good to see you all. I think, is it the last day of the Winter Olympics today? It's been pretty good. I guess because I've lived in Japan for 20 years and longer than anyone else. Although New Zealand got 2 bronze medals in something, ski jumping or something. Not that I could see that here, but that was kind of cool. But I guess you end up supporting Japan just because it's all that you see. And it's been kind of fun to watch. Although I must admit, I do have a beef with the Winter Olympics, which is that it's basically, you know, when the Olympics were only basically something that people that look like me did, right? Basically like rich, white European countries where even in those countries, it was, you know, it was basically upper classes. It was people who had enough money to do amateur sports and not need to get paid for it and not have their lives ruined by it. So basically, even working class in most of the, you know, the countries that used to participate in the Olympics would have struggled to actually participate. So it was very elitist and very limited. And this is why, you know, bobsled and alpine biathlon and so on made sense. It was only really from a few countries, and I really think it would be cool if we could get more sports into the Winter Olympics, and that it not just be an ice and snow thing, because most of the world doesn't live in ice and snow during winter time. You know, where I come from, winter is when you play soccer or football. It's when you play rugby or basketball. Or I wish you could get some more of those sports in, because it would let, you know, everyone participate a little bit more. But that said, I have enjoyed watching the curling. I even enjoyed watching the ice skating, actually, just because I'm in Japan and it was everywhere, and I kind of, yeah, no, it was very good. I've enjoyed that. So yeah, actually a lot of credit to Pyeongchang for getting that, for doing such a good job hosting. There were a lot of doubts in Japan that they would be able to do it, but it looks like they did it, so that is very, very good. Winter sport for commoners, shoveling. Well, see, that would be an event at least. I mean, that would be something. I mean, it's not like you need to invest in a whole bobsled or something like that to do that. So it's a bit like the 100 meters, right? Anyone can run 100 meters. Well, you know, shoveling, I think that would actually be a really good event. Well, no, it wouldn't be a good, it'd be a terrible event, but at least, but I'd say it's more braggable to say that you are the best shoveler in your entire country, or the Olympic gold medal snow shoveler. That's kind of saying something a little bit more than saying that you can ride a, you know, toboggan fast, but that's just me. What else we got? We got Kang and Kodos made it to one. Good to see indeed you did make it to this one, and it's good to have you here. We got Ko Hoshino, and good evening right back to you. Good to have you in here. Konbanwa. We also have, who else we got in here? We got everyone saying hello to each other, and that is all good. That is all good. I've got a couple of updates. The project, the MyChan TV project, it's been moving along. So the plan is still for it to. I haven't heard your track, by the way, Ty. I know, and you emailed me the link. I haven't had time to listen to it. I'm sorry. You know what? Thank you for reminding me. That's right. I was gonna listen to it on the way home the other day, and what was I doing? I was doing something else on the train anyway. I'm sorry about that, but no. So I should listen to that. And Ty makes awesome music, everybody. So please go out and check out his SoundCloud. Shogunai Ty. Coming back, MyChan TV, so it still is on track for hopefully getting into beta, that you guys will be able to use it on March 3rd, which is what, 3 weeks from now. So 2 weeks in, the GUI, the graphic user interface, is all working pretty nice. It's almost where I want it to be. We haven't got it working with data yet, and that's really the big deal. But we have a prototype working with data, so it's just getting that in with the current interface, but it looks good. Yeah, you know, for me, it's been an interesting project, but it's good now that I just want to get it out there and you know, get you guys what you think of it. I think I've been plugging away at this thing for more than a year now. Actually, it probably didn't need to take that long, but it is pretty satisfying that it's getting there, and I cannot wait to share it with you. It looks really, really good. I'm tempted to show the demo to you guys now, but I want you to wait a little bit more because I want you to see it actually working with data, and I want to see that it works. So hold on for that and look forward to that. Hopefully, who knows, the next couple of weeks I might give you a preview just before the beta comes out. But that would be pretty awesome. Who else? We've got some more people joining. Bradley Ford, good to see you, Bradley Ford. And Natalie, good to see you, Natalie. Good to have you in here. So yes, we got lots of topics. Just in terms of what I've been watching, even tonight, I started watching. I've had people tell me for a long time to watch Orphan Black, and I thought, is that like Black Mirror? And you know, are people mixing that up or something? And I kind of saw it there. It was always on my my to watch, but I don't know. I just, for some reason, I never got around to watching it. But I had a number of friends actually tell me you have to watch that, so I started watching it. And it's taken me a while to get into it, but I must admit I've gotten onto the the 6th episode just before this, just now. And I'm actually starting to quite enjoy it. Actually, it's an interesting. It's kind of got Black Mirror-ish aspects. I think someone told me to watch it because I was really enjoying the short story format of Electric Dreams on Amazon Video. Which I think there isn't enough of anymore on TV. Everything needs to get drawn out into this, you know, into like a 5-season thing. It's not exactly that, although it's got elements of that someone told me to watch it when I said that's what I wanted to see. But it's pretty good anyway, so that is worth checking out. I watched a few movies this week actually. I watched Pixels the other day, which Adam Sandler, it was meant to be one of the worst movies ever. It's got like 18% on Rotten Tomatoes. And while I won't disagree that reputation is probably deserved, it was fun. I mean, if you go into it expecting it to be an 18% on Rotten Tomatoes, but screw it, I'll watch it anyway movie, and bearing in mind it is Adam Sandler, so you know, yeah, it was okay actually. I quite enjoyed it. So anyway, that was my week in terms of topics. And by the way, of course, you can, if you ask my name, it will pop up in orange and it will be very, very visible to me. So normally I'll notice it, and if you have topics for me, questions for me, anything on what's going on in Japan, just anything in general you would like to ask me, please let me know. Please change the picture, says Barringer. No, we're not going to change the picture because this is from 2.5 Voyages last night. We are back doing 2.5 Voyages, and we're only doing it. We're on a mission. Our mission is to you know, when we've got somebody Kohoshino, that's good, give me topics. When you do it, say at Mark Hiko Simon, just so that it stands out. I mean, I caught that one, but otherwise I might not notice it. We are back. We are on a mission, and that mission is that you know, it was the original mission of 2.5 Voyages was to actually have guests who are interesting to talk to, who have channels that are worth advertising, that are worth sharing with you guys. And yeah, Wolf was one last night, and you know what? His new channel name. Well, the link is on the video anyway, which is in my magazine there, and I tweeted it last night. But Jordan, anyway, he's been around on the YouTube scene for a long time, and he's just rebuilding his channel onto learning Japanese using anime. If you want to learn Japanese, it's a good channel, and it's really nice to be able to do 2.5 Voyages again and to have cool people to talk to. So yes, indeed, Mr. Cordy Chip, we're glad that you could make it. You're late, but that's okay. I'm normally late. Normally you would be on time by being late, but today I was on time, so you're late, Mr. Cordy Chip. What can we do? What can we do? By the way, also Nicholas Kato, konbanwa, right back at you. Good to have you in here. Kohoshino has a topic for me: English education in Japan from 2020. Well, first of all, I'm not an English teacher and I'm not an educator, so any opinions that I have on this are strictly amateur, and I'm hoping that post 2020. The Olympics themselves should have a big impact on Japan in the sense that given that they're expecting 40 million foreigners and there are currently like 20 million, there used to be way less than a million coming to Japan. Certainly the number of jobs associated with the Olympics and the internationalization that it's going to bring is going to mean that a lot of Japanese, not just in Tokyo but around Japan, are going to be exposed to dealing with foreigners more than they have in the past. And although most of those foreigners that come to Japan are Asian, they're Chinese and Southeast Asian and so on, English is the lingua franca. It's the most common language, even if it's not spoken as a first language. When you're trying to communicate with somebody and you don't understand each other's languages, English is most often the interim language which gets chosen. And what I'm hoping is not so much that the education system itself will change. What I'm hoping is that the exposure that the Olympics generates, both in having foreigners come to Japan and making Japanese aware of how they're perceived around the world, will just make Japanese more interested in learning English. And frankly, English is not an academic subject. Languages are not an academic subject. They're things that you use. They're like a tool. So this is what Japan's always been missing. Japanese are excellent at studying. They're great students. They're diligent. They do their homework, as I'm learning now with an 8-year-old son. But you know, they wonder why do we still suck at English? Well, it's just that, you know, and why they don't have that going out and using it chance, especially lately. You know, there's just less and less kids going on exchange or seeing the value in going overseas, and I think from that, I think that loss of connection is why English is sort of lost. It's not just the teachers. I mean, if you could have a crappy course, but if you've got good enough teachers and motivated kids, you'll get good results. I think the kids are going to hopefully be a lot more motivated post 2020, and I hope that's going to connect to both improvements in how English is taught, as well as exposure and chances to use English, but I think also the motivation of the kids and to understand the value of it. I'm hoping that will come through. Also, before we get into it, I see that Bradley Ford has taken me up on my invitation. I was saying, great to have Paul Chapman from Money Tree, who I understand is a New Zealander. I've heard this name before. Interesting career in Japan. Oh, he's Australian. Okay, well that's okay too. And the history of his venture. Money Tree is an app, by the way, which I haven't really used it lately, but it's a very good app. In fact, oh god, the host in Japan, his name, I dropped his name, but one of the best guests we ever had on 2.5 Voyages, I think is now associated with that actually, and really, really cool guy actually. So that sounds very interesting. I'd be really interested to get these guys on, but they're not really in the community. It's basically, this is a community sort of focus sort of a show. That said, I just need a little bit of courage to go and approach these guys. I agree, it's a very good idea. Lysander 45, well, I congratulate you. Well, I join you in congratulating Xi Jinping on his historic and not at all worrying eventual third term as president of China. Well, I heard that they just that he's proposing getting rid of terms, which means that he'll get to be president of China for life. And I'm not inside China, so I don't have to say congratulations. In fact, I can say, oh my god, that's terrifying, and I'm really glad I'm not in China. But if you're in China, yes, indeed, congratulations, Chairman Xi Jinping. What other choice do you really have to say that? I mean, this was always the only real check on power. There was the knowledge that, you know, I mean, Jiang Zemin, he managed to keep control of the military when they handed over to Xi Jinping, right? It was all sort of balanced to make sure that the previous president doesn't kill, although the new president doesn't kill the old one, which is what happened with Mao, right? Basically, everyone sort of, you know, if not physically character assassinated the previous presidents. And that's what's had the continuity that's allowed power to change and refresh in China. And I think it's actually, setting aside the whole totalitarian government kind of thing for a moment, even if I was designing a totalitarian system that would not get stale or collapse on itself like Eastern Europe, I think the methods of renewal that the Chinese government have are smart. I think having this whole mechanism of kind of orderly transition and refreshing of the Politburo is part of what's given the Chinese Communist Party its longevity. And frankly, a grab for power like that appears to be, to remove the terms of chair people, I think it's not good for the Communist Party of China. If it's looking out for its own interests, I think it's going to reinforce staleness and you know, defensiveness, and I don't know. I don't see how that's a good idea, even if you're pro what they're, you know, the organization that they're a part of, which, you know, I'm not, but I don't live there, so, you know, what do I know? But congratulations indeed. I for one welcome our probable future overlords. So there we go. So yes, we've gotten all of that. They have gone to, I'm praising the CCP. I'm not praising the CCP. I'm basically, well, I kind of am, because I might have to travel there. I'm giving them some friendly advice, CCP, which is that if you want to continue, you know, being in power for the next 100 years, giving leaders perpetual terms is a really bad idea. Just look at where they've tried it everywhere else. I think the system that you have of these renewals is actually, I know it's a pain, but it probably is actually going to work out a lot better. So let's get into it. And yes, again, you can ping me anytime. @markme, make my name stand out there, and I will respond. Let's get into the topics that I have that I've tweeted this week. You can follow me on Twitter, of course. Twitter.com/Simon, same as my YouTube channel, or Facebook. You can do the same thing. And all my tweets are public. All my messages are public on Facebook. I haven't really posted so much on Facebook lately, but I'm always happy to get into conversations there. Actually, I got into a very good conversation today with, was it Law-Abiding Gun Owner is the name of the guy, but he's actually a guy who watches 2.5 VIGs. He just made a Twitter channel for that purpose. And actually had a very reasonable discussion. I mean, an exchange of views. The guy is someone who feels like gun ownership and self-protection is a right. That liberals are obsessed with taking away this right from him and from other people like him that are innocent and have no right, and taking away their right to own guns is completely wrong. And he feels sad about that and angry at the liberals. And I talked with him and I gave him my sort of views back, which is that I don't see it as a right. I mean, I grew up in a gun-owning household, shooting guns. You know, it's fun. I've been hunting. I know how to look after rifles. I enjoy shooting. But I always looked at it, and I look at it as a privilege. And frankly, I'm very glad to live in a country, as much as I enjoyed shooting and as wonderful as my memories of shooting were growing up. And as a part of my development, you know, learning how to, you know, look after guns and so on. I'm also very glad that I don't have the opportunity to give that to my son, because that's just reflective that I'm in a society where those things are just not lying around everywhere. You know, for me, I mean, to me, owning a gun is like owning nerve gas. I mean, frankly, it's just a thing that you have there for killing people, and I'd rather live in a society where they're not all over the place. You know, in America it's okay, guns are okay, but nerve gas is not. You know, for me it's all kind of the same. That's kind of how I look at it. But it was good. We came down to sort of agreeing to put it down to culture difference, which I said it certainly is. But that's okay. I really enjoyed actually having a reasoned discussion with someone, and we were actually sort of, you know, basically sharing perspectives in a non-ad hominem reasonable way, and it's really, I enjoy that actually. In fact, frankly, I've got a tendency to, I like to draw out the logic from people, which makes me take contrary positions, even when I don't sincerely hold them sometimes. I did in this case, but, you know, for example, if this person was to me, like a freakish anti-gun nut, sometimes I might just make pro-gun arguments just to prod them, just to see if they're capable of being reasonable. So, yeah, no, he did not do, not this time, Mr. Cordychep. And this is the thing, I mean, I know people who agree with me who say that sort of stuff. You know, it's always nice to have a debate with someone that I can respectfully disagree with. I think that's what society's missing nowadays, is the ability to respectfully disagree. So there we go. Although, please, if you want to call me bald and crazy, and as long as you can back it up with reason and prove it to me, hell, I could probably be convinced. I was in a taxi going from Seattle Airport, Tacoma Airport, into the center of town, or actually it was the other way. It was going from town to the airport. A lovely taxi driver from Eritrea explained to me why he thought, you know, white people are evil and I was the devil. I was, wow, that's interesting. You're from Eritrea, right? And he's, yeah. It's like, okay, well, tell me. I mean, explain it to me. You know, I'm interested to know why am I the devil? And after putting out that thing, he explained to me very reasonably the history of Eritrea, the history of colonization of Africa, subjugation of the people there, and how, you know, how from where he sits, there's no other way to perceive that even nice-seeming white people were going in and were part of a machine that subjugated the whole continent and caused so much suffering. And, you know, when he sort of spelled it all out, I was kind of like, well, you explained that really well. In fact, I'm kind of convinced. Sorry, man. Eritrea is an interesting country. I mean, it was like the Italy of of Africa that became North Korea. But there we go. I'm aggressively short here. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Did the Battle of Athens, Georgia come up? No, it did not come up. I'm not familiar with the Battle of Athens, Georgia, so I'm glad it didn't. What can I say? What else we got? Ko Hoshino is saying, please share about the work style reform, especially the Sairio Rodose, if possible. I'm not that knowledgeable about it. I know it's been in the news this week that they're bringing in new work reforms to try to minimize excessive overtime and to make working style, the ability to work from home, to work flexible hours, to not have to do so much overtime. The government's trying to regulate this right now, and the Ministry of Health, Labour, Welfare went and did a whole bunch of surveys to try to back this up with in order to underpin new laws, which basically they commissioned this research. I used to work in one of the think tanks that did this sort of research for government ministries to propose laws and draft laws. It was really cool. So I'm kind of curious which company it is that screwed up the data so badly. When the Prime Minister was preparing the survey data that was gathered from a government survey of hundreds of companies, it came up with things like, companies that have 45 hours overtime in a day or something like that. There was just obvious mistakes in the data, and without those mistakes being caught, the Prime Minister read them out in Parliament, and it was seen as over Wakanda. Indeed, Wakanda. I haven't seen that yet. I haven't seen Black Panther. I'm keen to watch it, but I have not seen it yet. But yeah. So they basically they're bringing out. To me, I mean, hell, if the new law is going to make working conditions better in Japan, I'm all for it, and I don't really care about the statistics, but it's been kind of a big deal. I can't talk in depth about it, and I will get into my subjects. How long before Abe declares himself shogun? I think, well, he kind of already has. I mean, at the moment there's people sitting in the wings, but there's just no one there to challenge. I mean, seriously, China, Xi Jinping, if you are watching this, seriously, look at what Abe is doing. Look at what the LDP has done. I mean, they actually have a full democracy and just no one there to want to take the other job. I mean, that's the way you do it. Money for nothing and chicks for free. So there we go. It's possible it could be that. Criso della Erikeku, you did not miss anything, don't worry. Actually, people have just been asking me random stuff, and I've been answering it there in the start. Hey, we got Remino in the house. Good to have you here, Remino. I just spotted you there. And Lempa, good to have you. My voice is just the best for drawing. So fun to listen to. Really, people tell me it's also good for going to sleep. So, good for drawing and going to sleep. Multiple uses. I should put these in the tags just so that people discover me and they find the usefulness of my voice. So there we go. Thank you for that. That is why he flipped over backwards playing golf with Trump. Well, and that's right. I mean, it's one thing to throw the game, but to actually backwards somersault in the bunker. I mean, here is a man trying very, very hard to lose to Trump, and that's why he's the Prime Minister. I mean, he's got all the tricks. That's the thing with Abe. If you're watching this, I must admit, sometimes I've looked, and you can actually get quite a. You can't actually find out. I don't know that you could find out anything that would really violate the privacy of users from the analytics, but certainly, I must admit, I expressed curiosity sometimes when I was seeing something, for example, a video with one down thumb on it, and I'm kind of like, well, that's interesting. What will the analytics tell me about the one person who gave me a down thumb? And it was kind of funny because there were a few videos with one down thumb, and every time the person was like in Saudi Arabia, the next week they're in Myanmar, the next week they're in Lithuania. I'm like, well, it's either the same person who's going to a lot of trouble to use like interesting VPNs, which I kind of respect. In fact, that's kind of cool, or or people just somehow mistakenly click on my video and I'm just really not popular in Myanmar or Lithuania or Saudi Arabia, and I'm very sorry about that. Actually, I mean, Saudi Arabia wasn't one of the countries, but Myanmar was. I was kind of impressed with Myanmar. That kind of stuck with me. It's kind of, I must admit, I'd be kind of upset if I wasn't popular in Saudi Arabia. If someone ever discovered me there, that'd be kind of cool just to get those views. But you could actually, so the point is, you could identify pretty close down to at least where the persons are from or where the clicks are coming from. You can do that, but I don't know that you can really, how far you can go to violate people's privacy. But I guess, yeah, now they're going to make it harder to violate that. So I guess that's fair enough. Your uncle's girlfriend is from Myanmar. Maybe it was her. That could be it. It could be your uncle's girlfriend. Maybe your uncle needs a new girlfriend. Myanmar, interesting country, by the way. It was an English colony, of course, as Burma, and they spoke English there. And there are actually a lot of English people in New Zealand and Australia who were born there. A bit like you meet Japanese from Sakhalin and Manchuria and Dalian and stuff like that. They just lived. These were all sort of colonies in the not so distant past, actually, as much as it's got this weird reputation now. So I don't know. I mean, I'm seriously, I don't know how much you can really have your privacy violated by the analytics, but it'll be less going forward. So there you go. Next topic is how do I feel about bilingual chica YouTuber was holding a shake hand with her fans at a bookstore at Shinjuku. Am I jealous of her? No. I've actually, you know what? I've met her once or twice. I've said hello to her, I think, in the YouTube space. She seems lovely. She's very successful. And power to her. I would not want to do what she does. I would not want to book. I would not want to do. Well, maybe I would, but I want it to be my book, you know, about this. Which seriously, it's never going to be like a shake hand thing. In terms of doing, you know, the idea of going out and making an educational series that people find useful, that then becomes a published book and a textbook, and then do handshakes. I wouldn't do that. So she's doing it, and that's fantastic. And congratulations to her. She's very professional. She puts a lot of thought and effort into it, and that's what you get as a result of that. So there you go. The TPP, butter is back, baby. Free trade zone from the treaty originally started by Chile, New Zealand, Brunei and Singapore. Chile and New Zealand look like they're going to be the first, Chile and Japan are going to be the first two countries to implement it. Of course, a lot of people said, oh, when America pulls out of it, it's all going to be dead. Actually, no, it's a lot better, because with America in it, you needed to have all the American IP rules to protect like Mickey Mouse from ever coming out of copyright, which means that copyright used to be like 25 years. If something was in copyright for 25 years, the moment it was out of copyright, you were free to use it, which is actually how the original Disney movies were all just out of copyright. Like, you know, the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was written about 30 years before it was made into a movie. Disney's fortune was made based on recently out of copyright works, but yet ever since Mickey Mouse, ever since Steamboat Willie, the American economy has been based on keeping it protected by copyright, which means that basically it's stifled innovation, and it means that you've got all these ridiculous copyright rules that, you know, some make sense and some really don't make sense, that we'll have to deal with and that we think are ridiculous. And America made it a condition that after joining the TPP that everyone had to adopt their logic and sense with these laws, which would have been crazy. So we were saved by Trump actually coming and pulling America out. Plus, of course, it's really good for New Zealand and Australia and Canada that pretty much make all the same things that America makes, at least in terms of minerals and agricultural produce, and Japan can just buy from them, and they'll all have a fantastic, they're going to sell lots of stuff and get lots of jobs. And America's a big country, it can look after itself, it doesn't need the TPP. Although now they are getting regrets, because they thought it would be gone and we'd come begging back to them, and actually no, we're just going to kick off. And hell, who knows, China might join. If China joins, then it certainly wouldn't need America, and frankly it'd be a huge opportunity lost for America, because this whole thing was negotiated by the Americans. They sort of took it over as an opportunity to create all these markets with free and open access to their exporters, and they changed their mind about it. I mean, they're the ones who wanted to take advantage of this pre-existing treaty that was there. Silliness, but there again, it's America's choice if they want to, you know, protect American jobs from the reverse, from imports. And we still get our butter here in Japan, although again it isn't one of the protected categories, which annoys me. But we are going to get all of those excellent dairy products, and so I'm looking forward to not having butter shortages anymore if it's avoidable. So there we go. Limpa, you're going to start studying Japanese in uni, and you know, I know you and Victor always advise against it, but could you give me any advice going in? I think you might have asked something before that I missed. Besides studying a lot, advise against it? I certainly advise for studying. I have advised against using anime, but there again, I mean, Jordan, the guy who we did 2.5 Voyages with last night, he's got a channel based on learning that, and there is actually lots of good anime that you can actually learn pretty good Japanese from now. To me, my advice is just immerse yourself as much as possible. Get all the online content that you can see. Find some good Japanese TV shows, dramas I like, but just anything that you like. Find Japanese people, communities and so on, exchange students, part-time jobs. I got a part-time job in a Japanese souvenir shop in New Zealand just so I could practice. I made Japanese friends. through which I eventually got a Japanese girlfriend. I watched Japanese TV, I went to Japanese karaoke. All these things made studying a lot easier, and it made me better at Japanese. So all of those things, just get stuck into it and absolutely study. You try learning from Gaki no Tsukai. There are worse shows than Gaki no Tsukai, although not many. I learned a little bit from Gotsui Kanji, which I soon regretted, but it was a lot of fun. So there we go. So Bitcoin is recognized in Russia. I did not know about that. I don't know what you're talking about, but there we go. So that's the TPP, guys. That's good news. This is some crazy shit. Okay, so in Japan, after World War II, when the GIs and the Americans all came to Japan, there were a lot of sort of go-go bars. Japan was set up like kind of a, you know, cross between sort of MASH and, you know, the Philippines when they had all the US bases there. And in the law against prostitution and you know, sex establishments, there was the assumption that basically places where people dance to music late at night were always sex establishments. So there's specific laws that actually say that you need a special prostitution license or something like prostitution. Prostitution is technically not legal in Japan, but forms of it are. So technically, you need a knocking shop special license. You need to be closed by midnight, and you need to run to a lot of rules if you allow dancing, because it means that you must just be running a brothel pretty much the way that the police treat it. So there's always been this contradiction. Japan is one of the best nightclub cultures in Japan, yet the police decided, mainly because of noise complaints from people in Roppongi, from the nightclubs being very close to residential areas, and some just old people deciding that they didn't like the noise at night. The police started enforcing it by saying to the owners, if you stop making so much noise at night from all the dance music, we're going to start enforcing the anti-brothel law against you. And police would come in and they would literally make the arrest based on seeing people dancing. Now, of course, this is an antiquated law from a different time based on a whole different circumstance, when basically this was for go-go bars for GIs, not for normal nightclubs. But technically the law is still on the books. It hasn't been revoked. And yeah, a lot of police still use this against clubs when they want to basically put pressure on them to do something that they want. There's this bar Geronimo's in Roppongi. It's kind of one of the most famous shop bars in Japan. And Geronimo, yeah, and yeah, it's one of the most famous bars in Japan, and yet the police have commenced proceedings against them, basically for allowing dancing. Now, to be clear, there is music there, but there is no dance floor. It's a bar, so just apparently police came in and they saw a couple of people dancing beside the bar while music was playing at night, and they decided to arrest or to charge the bar manager. Completely ridiculous. I think I've complained about this law on the show before. The parliament, they were going to abolish the law, but then a few of the octogenarian, a few of the 80+ people there decided that, you know what, let's make it so that you have to dance basically with enough room for the baby Jesus in between and fully bright lights. And hell, I think they even required like line dancing or something. It was a little bit ridiculous actually when they did pass the law. So yeah, and they're still enforcing here against bars. What about the massage parlors? Well, that is very careful to only have sex and not dance. I mean, or hand jobs or whatever they do. That's a whole very complicated subject, which, you know, I'm not sufficiently detailed on. Tokyo Vice by Jake Edelstein. He actually has a whole chapter dedicated to explaining the different forms of night entertainment in Japan, but it is ridiculous that normal bars and nightclubs, I mean, hell, I came here for the nightclubs, I came here for the drum and bass, and it's crazy, some of the best clubs in the world are in Tokyo, but technically you're not supposed to dance after midnight, so yeah, it's kind of crazy. Derek Armstrong, well, there we go. Line dancing is the only way where you come from, and hell, why not? So what else we got here? Japan is the safest country to have a baby. This surprised me, because in Japan 99% of births are natural births. No epidurals, no, they don't even offer it, not even for emergencies. So what you do hear about in Japan, more than infants dying during birth, you hear about mums dying during birth in Japan. There's more complications for the mums. The obstetrics here are antiquated. But that said, the reason why this might prove the case is that certainly it was true even in modern hospitals. There's a general philosophy in Japanese obstetrics that when you have a baby, you deliberately not eat during pregnancy. So you meet pregnant Japanese people who, they don't look pregnant, they look skinny and small, and you're thinking, how in the hell do you have a baby in there? And the answer is because their doctors starve them. They do not allow them to eat. They keep them on a strict regime, which is intended deliberately to starve the baby while it's in the womb, so it's born small, in order to reduce the risk of complications of natural birth to the mother. So they have this idea of keeping the children small until birth and then building them up really fast after birth. Are people comparing this baby to Eritrea? Oh my God, that's complicated. I met someone from Eritrea a few weeks ago. She was lovely. She wasn't the I keep running into Eritreans. It's crazy. There was of course the taxi driver who said I was a devil, but then there was this lovely lady who came over with my work, and we were actually talking, and it was pretty cool. She was like her mother was like a priest, or her father was a priest for Haile Selassie, which, if you are familiar with Rastafarianism, which is very big in New Zealand, by the way, that's really cool. He was actually a priest for freaking Rastafari, Haile Selassie, which was talking about the history of all of that. I mean, that's a really interesting country, Eritrea. So don't go beating up on Eritrea, even though it kind of is like North Korea. It's not like North Korea, but they have US bases there. But yeah, or in Djibouti anyway, around that Horn of Africa, they have those there. But coming back, yeah, I got called the devil. Long story, I mentioned it before. The taxi driver said I was white and I must be the devil, and we had a really good discussion about it. Leader of Ethiopia, but Eritrea was part of Ethiopia at that time. It's very complicated. Yeah, coming back, the baby. So it's safe to have babies, but only because they starve the babies in the womb so that they come out really small, and then they build them out really big. And it's funny, they kind of like looked at me, dudism. I think that's a good one. They said, "Well, your baby's going to be enormous. We're going to have to schedule a C-section 2 months early or something." I'm like, dude, that sounds really early, and that sounds kind of ridiculous. But it is in the end what we kind of did. It was like a month early, but yeah, all went well, so all's well that ends well. But apparently, in spite of the somewhat archaic practices in this regard, I wouldn't recommend coming to Japan to have a baby, but I think it's a result of the overall. Why is that news Ivory Coast? Why is that tagged Ivory Coast? That makes no sense. But anyway, yeah, apparently they get the results, so there we go, it all works. I did not know this. Apparently for foreign citizen children in Japan, education is not mandatory. They're not subject to mandatory education, which is a problem, because where you get a lot of, particularly the factory towns that had a lot of Nikkei Japanese come from Brazil during the 1980s, a lot of kids there became not recalcitrant, not redundant, they became truant, they would not attend school. And they suffered for that. You have a lot of kids, and there's kind of a generation of these Brazilians who came to Japan during that time. They couldn't fit in school, and there was no alternative school for them, and attending school was not mandatory, so they just became uneducated kids living in a modern society, and they suffered disadvantages from it. Article there from Yahoo News talking about the plight of these foreigners, and certainly it's something that the government has to consider if they want to be, as they are, really aggressive now about allowing immigration and opening up immigration. But yeah, they've got to make sure that they have all the mechanisms available to integrate these people into Japan, including giving them access to education, which means making it, for me, both mandatory and making sure that they have the resources that they need to help them catch up when they can't, when they're not up to speed. So it's a problem still, which really hasn't been dealt with. If you're in Japan and you like McDonald's, I mean, this is kind of awful, but I'll just share. It's kind of made a big deal. 2,900 McDonald's outlets in Japan are going to allow you to order on your way to the McDonald's by mobile phone, so that when you get there, the order is already ready for you and you don't have to wait. Smart idea. Although at the same time, I mean, if it's like a freaking Happy Meal, do you really need to put that order in by mobile before you go and pick it up? I mean, I suppose it's good for capitalizing on that impulse. Big Mac buy. I tried to stop. I went a couple of years without eating big McDonald's after getting like a raw burger in one place. But I must admit, lately I've found myself in there like maybe, once a week. Normally after exercise or something like that, I'll just have a burger. I won't have like the soft drink or the fried potato. Fried potato, oh my god, that's Japanese, the French fries. But Yeah, they're trying to make it easier for people with the addiction, so there we go. 1 in 4 young Japanese say love is a pain in the butt, which it certainly is. This is a theme that I talk about a lot, but I think if you want to understand Tokyo, especially being like under 30 in Tokyo, the rest of Japan as well, but certainly Tokyo, it's just too much fun to be single. I mean, it's fun going out, and you know, I'm sure it's fun. I'm sure people still hook up and do all those sort of things if they're allowed to dance in nightclubs. But yeah, Tokyo is just a great place to be single, and it's a really awkward place, a really difficult place to be like attached to someone. So yeah, this trend, and I think everyone thinks it's all about the sex, and it's really not about the sex thing. Japan is not, you know, sexless or perverted or, you know, all these things. It's just simply been very successful at creating a society that young people just find really comfortable to be, to pursue their hobbies, to have a job that they enjoy, to pursue their hobbies, to have enough free time and income to go and travel as they want to travel. And you know, it's really tough when you have a really good life like that, that you can go, you know, that you can get you know, 4 or 5 weeks of work every year, and you go and spend that on international travel, that you have hobbies that you go to during the week, that you have, you know, you have a very rich life here as a single person. And when you live with someone, you have to compromise all of that. So there you go. And if they need it, they have their anime hug pillows. But this is always the thing, you know, if you yeah, relationships which entail compromise, you can have a very good uncompromised life here in Tokyo. And that's where 1 in 4 young people actually weigh it up and they say, hell, why would I want to have a relationship and ruin this whole thing? But of course the downside is that you might end up with an anime pillow, but for some maybe that's the right thing. Now this is actually big news. I don't like to talk about American news or politics, but I couldn't help but come to this one. So as we know, you know, America's been going through a lot of soul searching lately, and you know, there's been a lot of calls that leaving people's just some people think they have certain rights that need to be protected at all costs. Other people want to go and take those rights away. They just want to go and legislate and take away the freedom that was intended by the founding fathers. Loneliness is certainly a problem in Tokyo as well, however, Kohoshina, that's a good point. Well, sometimes people go through their selfish period, they get to 35, having had a very good life as a single person or whatever, and you know, deliberately avoiding relationships, and then they decide at that sort of quite late age that, hey, you know what, I actually wanted to have a family, and I don't know how to meet people, and I've got no chance of getting married. And a lot of people sort of have the, you know, yeah, there is that also. People are marrying later, and indeed the loneliness and the sort of regret about that kind of life, very fulfilling 20s period that you can have in Tokyo. Certainly there is the downside of that. But coming back, so you know, South Carolina, in response to recent news in America, has decided that the thing that really needs to be done is, you know, legislators have actually banded together and they've decided to take away the right of people just to wear saggy pants. And you know, I mean, I understand where they're coming from. There's this, you know, saggy pants epidemic, and no one likes to see it. But I question, you know, surely we can resolve the baggy pants problem by just praying for them. You know, every time I see a pair of baggy pants, I pray and I think of them, and you know, I think people should minimize that and think that they can just, you know, use a big hammer to ban it. And you know, and let's face it. I mean, you know, are we really? Why are we banning the pants? The pants are not sinful. It's the people wearing the pants, right? I mean, you know, can we help it if someone loses their mind and decides to hang their pants low? I mean, surely we could have caught these people before they decided to put pants on. You know, there's a mental health epidemic. No skid marks. There you go. You know, surely we could have caught these people sooner. You know, who is watching these people? Where are these people's parents? Seriously, like, you know, don't these people have mums who put their pants on for them, teach them the right way to put on pants? I mean, in the end of the day, why does society have to suffer the inability to wear pants just because some mum didn't teach their kids to put pants on properly? Or dad, right? I mean, you know, I think we really should be imposing the ban on parents and educators and everyone else. So I'm sorry, I know, Natalie, it's a little bit too soon to talk about saggy pants, but look, on the one hand, I respect that there are legislators out there who want to really tackle this problem and stamp it out and take the obvious route of just going out and banning it. But I want to say, you know, some people, you know, some of the founding fathers wore baggy pants. I mean, you know, they needed rope to tie them up. It was just hard to keep them up. And, you know, it's always been a right of Americans. And before we go stealing the rights of, you know, lots of innocent people for a few crazy people that wear their pants too low, I think we should just think about this. So there we go. That's crazy. That's crazy. Legislating about the wrong, and or for another perspective, what Japanese people think about this when Trump, you know, decided this week it was a good idea to arm teachers as a sole solution to the shooting pants. To the mass shootings issue. You know, everyone around the world gasped and said, "Oh my God, he's crazy." But the thing is, we all know that he's crazy. Trump, I mean, you know, America voted for a crazy president, and you've got what you voted for. I mean, but yes, very disturbing anyway, and I hope you guys fix that. I mean, if you can't fix that, I think people are so focused on gun control at the moment, yet America can't even like convert to metrics. So here's my challenge for America: if you can't, you know, tackle gun control yet, it's terrible and stupid, and the rest of us have done it, and we're really hoping that you guys sort it out. But it's okay if you can't do it. How about just try the metric system first? If you can convert your metrics, if you can do anything common sense at all, you know, I think that's a baby step. That's a halfway there, and that will be. Yeah, I think Maverick. I think you've got them all sorted. Well, listen, you know, at least next time a school is shot up, the chances, at least if that school mass shooting is in South Carolina, the chances that the shooter will have baggy pants are less. I still question, I mean, you know, surely if they had baggy pants, they wouldn't be able to run away so fast, right? I mean, you know, it might give the people a chance to get away from the guy. If the guy's pants are low, if they're like held up, he's just going to be more mobile, you know, like a cheetah. It's going to, I can see how, well, but still, no, at least it would double the insult, right? I mean, on the one hand, you've been shot and killed by somebody. On the other hand, the person who did it had saggy pants. I mean, that would be a little bit too much. So yes, coming back to it, Steve from Berkeley, there are two types of countries in the world: those who use the metric system and those who have put someone on the moon. Yeah, Steve from Berkeley, indeed that is true. Although the was it the Mars Express lander didn't quite succeed, but yeah, congratulations on that whole putting someone on the moon thing. Very good, inches ahead. So there we go. South Korea, so during the Olympics, there was actually a day this week, February 22, Takeshima Day. In Shimane Prefecture, there is an island called Takeshima, which is actually really close to Korea, or it's out right in the middle of the Sea of Japan. It's kind of close to Ulsan-do, which is a Korean island. They're like pretty close together. Japan decided 5 years before the annexation of Korea that, hey, those unmapped, unclaimed islands, which we think are unmapped and unclaimed, we'll take them, we'll annex them. And Korea at the time was kind of in a bit of a mess. Some Koreans say that if it wasn't in such a mess and being kind of messed around with by the Japanese and the Chinese and the Russians all at the same time, they would have raised their hands and said, hey, don't annex those islands. But no one said anything at the time. The Japanese said, hey, I just found these islands lying around here, we're going to take them. And yeah, you know, both sides have maps going back hundreds of years claiming it, but basically Japan annexed them as part of Japan. And after World War II, when the Americans were occupying Japan, they said you have to give back Korea. They made them give back Korea, but they didn't include those islands because the Americans decided, hey, those are separate. Those are actually, you know, integrated into Japan. A lot of Koreans after World War II didn't see it the same way. In 1953, the Korean government sent civilian coast guards with lots of guns to the islands. I believe 1953, it was just after the occupation of Japan was being lifted. But of course, Japan had no self-defense forces at that time. And Syngman Rhee, he sent a bunch of people to that island, Korean forces, basically to take it off Japan. They set up guns on the islands when fishermen from Shimane Prefecture, of which the islands are considered in Japan to be a part, went and tried to fish near the islands. The Koreans shot them. They killed something like 17 people, like fishermen, civilians around the island, just to sort of drive home the point that we defeated Japan, we took these islands back. You know, it's a big point for Koreans. It's a big point of pride that they consider the islands historically to be the beginning of the occupation of Korea by Japan, and this was the part of Korea that Korea took back for itself, that wasn't given back to it by the Americans, in a sense. So there's a lot of pride around what the islands represent, and they get very, very upset when the Japanese remind the Koreans, hey, can we have our islands back now, please? And whenever Japan does this, which is every year, there's a Takashima Day, which is celebrated in Shimane Prefecture, where they remind everybody that, hey, not cool Korea, give us our islands back, and not cool that you shot all of our fishermen. And Korea always protests, saying Japan should not keep making this unjust claim against a part of Korean territory that they were never entitled to in the first place. And it goes back and forth. The funny thing is that this time it actually happened during the Winter Olympics. And I was worried that was going to cause some aggro, but fortunately there were the curling semi-final, or that was going to be played against South Korea, was actually the day after this. It's an interesting dispute. It's one of the three main, of course, territorial disputes that Japan has. One with China over the Senkaku Islands, Diaoyu Islands. You've got the Kuril Islands, or the Hoppororo Islands, which Japan claims, the 4 islands closest to Hokkaido, not the entire Kuril Island chain, which were occupied by Russia, and of course Takeshima Island, which is occupied by Korea. And is a good excuse for Korea to have annual military exercises preparing for the invasion of Korea by Japan. That's right, they actually have military exercises practicing for Japan invading them, which is a little bit silly, but what can you do? So an annual thing, it happens. No one really in Japan ever expects the islands to come back, but at the same time it doesn't mean that they don't think that they're right. You know, Japanese government position, and most people, again, nobody expects it. Korea has now fortified the islands and has them armed and so on. They've made their point, and no one really gives that much of a crap. But it doesn't mean that Japan doesn't think that its claim was legitimate and is right, and it's a source of aggro between the two countries, and I don't really see how it's going to get resolved, other than, frankly, Japan's never going to try to take the islands back. So, you know, I think Korea should just chill and just be happy that they've got them. No one's really challenging that, but they get very aggravated when Japan has this Takeshima Day. Tokto, by the way, in Korea. Takeshima in Japan. So, up above, government has expanded the number of categories by which they will allow foreigners to come and work in Japan. So if you want to come work in Japan, they are widening it to areas that are reporting shortages of people, which is now like everywhere. So they've got a committee there, and they are considering the types of visas that they are going to allow. Anime is not specifically one of them, but what do we have here? We have the areas which have been specifically raised are 6 areas, which are currently having labor shortages, which are kaigo and kensetsu, which are construction and nursing, sabisu, general service industry, Kori, which is retail, Nogyo, which is agriculture. If you're interested in a job in agriculture, retail, services, unso? But anyway, delivery, transportation, construction, or nursing. These areas are about to be made open for people who want to have who want to work in Japan. So yeah, the possibilities for coming and working are ever increasing, and that's probably good news. So there we go. What else have we got here? In response, the plans to open casinos in Japan, they are now in consideration for the first time, that gambling can lead to gambling addiction, and this is known because Japan has tens of thousands of legal casinos called Pachinko parlors in Japan, with lots of addicted people whose lives have been destroyed and messed up by this addictive and horrible habit that is illegal in Korea, but in Japan is dominated by Korean people. They come over here to do it over here, even though they make it legal in Korea. But that's fine. It's been actually the backbone of that community for a long time. I believe now that's actually changed. A lot of the North Koreans that used to run the Pachinko parlors in Japan have actually naturalized and just become Japanese, and Japanese corporations have bought them up. It's a little bit of a stereotype. But in any case, they are talking about when they have these new resorts for these casinos set up in Japan, they're going to charge a $2,000 yen door fee to contribute towards gambling addiction. I suppose it's also a slight disincentive for coming in, but if you ask me, they should be putting that on the door of every pachinko parlor in Japan. It's also, you know, it's just it kind of ruins a good neighborhood to me. Unyu, I forgot the word unyu. Thank you, Kohoshino. I forgot that. I knew what it meant, but I just forgot the word. It's frustrating. So, yeah, is there a good resource on the types of visas made available by Japan? Yes, there is. Look up your local country. Well, there's two sides. One is, of course, your local embassy. They have a lot of visa information on available visas, including working holiday, scholarships, special student visas, special temporary working visas that are available. Remembering as well that the list is different by country, which countries are allowed to apply for different visas. The other source is you can check the Ministry of Justice, but again, that's more general, so it's better to go to your embassy website, your own country, Japan embassy website, which will have the visas that are available to you. Lempa, hell yes, North Koreans ran pachinko parlors. That's how, I mean, honestly, those missiles that got shot over Japan, it was like a sick joke that were being funded by the remittances from North Koreans that ran Japan's pachinko parlors. Look it up. The history of North Koreans, Maruhan, you know, the biggest pachinko chains in Japan were run by local, you know, Japan-born, but by the North Korean community in Japan, and they would often remit the money back to the North Korean government. And for many very complex reasons, the Japanese government and police looked the other way and allowed them to do it for a very long time. It's become a lot more tight. They actually banned remittances after the abduction thing came out and after the Territorial missile was fired over Japan in 2002. After that, it was like the government said, okay, all of that money you pachinko guys are sending back to Japan, back to North Korea, you're not allowed to wire that money anymore. They started actually cracking down on it, but they allowed them to do it for like, geez, 50 years. So yes, indeed, you should Google that. That is a very interesting area, actually. The upside is that, you know, there's a very large Korean community, resident ethnic community in Japan, and, you know, they've been dependent upon this industry for a long time in the post-war. It kind of saved them from really becoming an underclass in Japan. Some would say that they were, but this probably prevented, you know, this was a source of support for that industry, and there were a lot of advocates, including Stomu Nonaka. Was it Stomu? There's a different name here. Nonaka, anyway, LDP Secretary General from Kyoto, who was actually a fierce advocate for North Koreans in Japan, and he was the Secretary General of the Liberal Democrat Party, the LDP, the governing party of Japan, and he was one of the guys that made sure that no one would ever regulate pachinko, which is stupid, but that's just my opinion. Currently in the High Court of Japan at the moment, couples are fighting to keep their names separate, to not have to change their names when they get married. This is becoming a big deal, at least to make it optional to retain separate surnames. It is tough in Japan, and I guess now that you're having more single kids, where they're like the only kid in the family, wanting to keep the sort of the family tree and identity sort of makes a lot of sense. So yeah, it's not only being fought in court now, but it's being fought in Parliament as well, and it looks like that's probably going to change in the next couple of years. A good summary of the issue there in courts. The new Han Solo movie, a lot of people don't like the trailer. I have trouble with the voice of Han Solo, because, you know, we're just so used to it being Harrison Ford. That said, the trailer looks really good. I'm hoping it's going to be a Rogue One type movie. I'm hoping rather than a, you know, Caravan of Courage type movie. I am a Star Wars fan. I watched the Christmas special and the 2 or 3, there were like 3 Ewoks movies, and I saw all of them. And so I know what a bad Star Wars spin-off looks like. This looks like it is not gonna suck to me, and just as confirmation of that, when they put I mean, the video, the song Sabotage by the Beastie Boys is, apart from being one of the best music tracks ever, and on more than that, is actually, I think, the best music video ever made, and it didn't get a Grammy. I mean, it's crazy. To me, the most outrageous, I mean, I don't care about Grammys. I'm not going to go Kanye on everybody about this, but the video for Sabotage not getting a Grammy was the most shocking thing in any award thing I've ever seen. They put the Han Solo trailer to Sabotage, and it's just like, that song just works with any video, but it worked very well with that, so there we go. Sergeant Bilko is still debating whether we like The Last Jedi or not. I liked it, but I want to watch it again. There was a lot going on with that. I see a lot of people, I have a friend who wrote a blog that I think I shared, who violently disliked it. And I passionately disagree with him, but I do want to rewatch it, actually. I do worry a little bit about the Disneyfication of Star Wars, the sanitization that goes along with that, and the feeling that you do get in both The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, that the movie was getting rushed out the door a little bit. Like, they really could have spent more time on the story writing and really building it out, and they didn't. But I still liked it. I thought it was well done, and I'm still glad that it seems to be being looked after. More stories there about Japan being open to foreign professionals, ethical guidelines for the Tokyo Stock Exchange. This is interesting because Japan didn't have them before. In fact, Nomura and Daiwa would actually, insider trading wasn't even overtly illegal in Japan. They would actually pass on tips about upcoming, IPO stuff that would get you thrown in jail in America. It was like a service in Japanese stock trading. So like a long way behind, but yes, that's good to see that is coming. 4 things to consider if you're thinking about life in Japan. By the way, we are up on time, so I'm just going to race through these. Japanese ability, yes, that's right. What else? Workplace realities. The honeymoon period wearing off, that is also true. General happiness. People keeping their emotions inside and so on. And future plans. What do you want to do? Are you going to stay here forever? Well, hell, I did it. But that's right, if you're thinking about life in Japan, you do have to think about, do I speak Japanese? Can I really be happy here? Am I really okay with the work culture? And what was the last one? Happiness, we got that one. And future plans. Is this really forever? Coastal Racer, the track which I played the last Friday night, I actually did create a track for it and uploaded it, and that is there. And also earlier this week, on February 19 this week, on February 19 this week is the day that FDR signed the Executive Order 9066, which basically forced the forfeiture of properties and rounding up an arrest of 120,000 people, and this means women, children, men, women, American citizens that for the crime of having Japanese ancestry, and were put into camps. They were concentrated into camps where they were detained for the duration of the war, just based on mistrust of them, based on their ethnicity. That was FDR who did that, and that's batshit crazy. Now that said, Jews were rounded up in Britain and Australia because there were a lot of Jews who were from Europe who were escaping the Nazis, and they believed that it seemed that they actually rounded Jews up in camps and sent them to Australia from Britain, and they were detained for the war as well. Ironically, they were escaping the Nazis and they were put into British concentration camps. No one was really clean on this, but it's very important to remember that this happened, to make sure it never happens again. And people in the Trump administration, when it got elected, saying, hey, we could do what we did with the Japanese with Muslims. Like, fucking, are you crazy? This is, this is qualitatively very, very, very similar to that which we thought is the most unthinkable crimes that were done by the Nazis. Now, of course, they weren't sent there to be killed or, starved to death or whatever, but still the patent injustice of it, and that it was even possible to happen. All these gun debaters, I had this gun debate today, the idea that guns are necessary to protect people from tyranny. So what does that person say to this? Does that person say that, well, the Japanese should have all had guns, and would they have been entitled to a Second Amendment person to say? These Japanese, facing the tyranny that was their own government, betraying them, should they have taken arms against the American government, for freedom against tyranny? That's what this was. But yet it was precisely the fear that they would do that made them that made the government intern them. I think this is where it's nice to think that people could rise up in revolution against the government anytime, and that'll keep the government honest, but this is what governments can do, and this has happened. Slavery happened, this happened. The Second Amendment didn't prevent either of them, and it won't prevent the next one, unfortunately. What you need is rule of law, if you ask me, and I know that most Americans aren't, but you should, because it makes sense. This was interesting, but you know what, I'm done. So I'm going to do an outro. I made a new track the other day, and I made a new loop. Let's do that, and I'm going to say good night. Hope you guys are all well. Yeah, but there was discussion of that by, maybe it wasn't by Trump, maybe it was Bannon, but I remember the, that came up at a time during the election. I mean, you know, it was all crazy stuff. But the fact it could even be considered, to me, was so shocking. Or the fact that the example of rounding up, the positive reference, you know, hey, wasn't that a good idea? Kind of reference to the internment of Japanese. It was very, very disturbing, and that did happen around that time. And I thought, man, that's not good. But you know, fortunately, that is not boom where we ended up. So let's go on to the calculator. I made a new track. I haven't named it yet. If you like it, I'll make it into a full track. If you don't like it, that's good. Tell me. I will not do that. Let us put in a headphone. Let me get this connected. This should be showing up soon. Let me turn on the sound and let me do the outro. It's been very good having you along. And audio input capture. Boom. Okay. And the HDMI is not capturing. I'm going to try that one more time. Boom. And one sec. Okay, well, there we go. I just remembered I set this up wrong. There we go. Boom. 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 Okay. Take that out. Put this in. Sound up. Okay, outro track. Have a good one, everybody. It's a bit cheesy. I was in that sort of a mood. Oh! You had no sound. I'm sorry. There it is. Oops. Okay, I'm going to start that again. It's kind of cheesy. Now I realize what was happening. Here we go. Well, I'm kind of into it. It is a bit cheesy, but here we go. Let's, there we go. What happened? I lost sound. How did that happen? Ah, sometimes you bump the HDMI and it does that. One sec. Let me try that again. There we go. Oops. End of the show. Hope you enjoyed it. See you next week. Peace. Oh, the cables are sensitive. That just cut out again. Well, anyway, that's kind of not the outro I planned. Let's do that one more time. Ooh. That's the show. Have a good night. See you next week. And boom. Peace.